All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Annie Murphy. I'm here from the Center College Admission Office. I have the pleasure today to speak with an incredible member of our faculty, Lori Hartmann. Professor Lori Hartmann is going to be with us today. We're going to get into some great conversation just about her time at Center, her path to kind of how she's gotten to where she is now. And some of the wonderful ways that she works with students who are here at Center. So, a little bit more introduction. So again, my name is Annie. I'm a member of our admission team. I'm also a Center alum. And when I was at Center, I had the opportunity to study abroad, which was really life changing for me, absolutely. And then that kind of love has been continued, and I've actually gotten the opportunity to work with all of our international students who are considering coming to Center. So I've also gotten the opportunity to get to know students from all over the world, which is just an absolute privilege. So that's a little bit about me, but really this is all about Dr. Hartmann today. So I'm going to have her introduce herself. If you could just tell us a little bit about how long you've been at Center, kind of what is your role here. I'd love to hear about that.
All right, thanks for inviting me, Annie. Happy to be here. I wear two hats at Center. I'm a professor of international studies, which is an interdisciplinary major that students take that combines history, economics, and politics, sometimes anthropology and religion, that really tries to understand global phenomenon. That's essentially what the major is about. And so I've been a professor in that program since 1999, so more than 20 years. And then just last year, I pivoted to become the director of our study abroad program, our Center for Global Citizenship, which dovetails beautifully with my work. My area of expertise is Africa, and I've actually taken students to Cameroon and Central Africa in my role as professor, but also as a study abroad leader. So I'm passionate about study abroad. I think students, it changes your life, your perspective, and it enriches your school, your academic work. So I'm a huge champion of study abroad, and that's why I'm so excited to be in this position.
Great, thank you. I would love to learn a little bit about how you have kind of gone through your academic career. Where did you grow up? Tell me a little bit about your own education, and how did you find yourself kind of attracted to this particular field of study?
Yeah, I grew up in a small town in Northwest Indiana, about 40 miles outside of Chicago. Right on Lake Michigan. So that had a big influence on me. I ended up being a swimmer, a competitive swimmer. And the proximity to Chicago was great because you get all that cultural activity, but still maintain a train ride away. As a high school student, I really had no idea what I wanted to do, but I was good in math. In the early 1980s, if you were a girl and good in math, people encouraged you to go into engineering or computer science. So I thought I was going to do that, but it was mostly because of the outside voices telling me what the right thing to do was, as opposed to my own passion for it. But I knew that I didn't want to go, Indiana, the really good engineering school is Purdue. I knew I didn't want to go to a big state school like Purdue. And I wanted to swim competitively, and I wasn't good enough to swim at a Division I level. So not only am I a huge fan of the liberal arts model, I'm a huge fan of the scholar-athlete model. But I swam for 4 years in college at a small liberal arts school in Ohio. and loved that combination of sort of mind, body, spirit,
Mm.
cultivation. That's what happens on a liberal arts campus for a lot of people. So it was in college that I majored in computer science. I followed through with that, but I loved all my other classes. You know, I was doing the computer science for the practical reasons, and then I would love my philosophy class or my anthropology class. I only took one course the entire time on Africa, and it was an anthropology course that I would never have imagined that would be the direction I would take.
Wow.
I was a French minor. I studied abroad in Paris, and just love the interdisciplinary aspect of the liberal arts.
Mm.
That I go from a computer science, like coding, really technical class, and then walk into a French class and discuss French literature. There was something about that made me come alive and just bought into the liberal arts.
Mm.
Say, you know, some students, I'm sure a lot of high school students, I couldn't have described what liberal arts was supposed to be. I knew I wanted to go to a small school. I knew I wanted to take a lot of different subjects, but I learned about it sort of organically over time and came to appreciate what it brings to just the cultivation of the mind and growth. I felt like I really grew intellectually as a person those 4 years. And then graduated and got a job immediately. Everybody was right. If you're a woman with a computer science degree in the mid 80s, you've got your choices. And got a really good job in Boulder, Colorado. It was exactly where I wanted to live. It was like everything was smooth sailing.
Yeah.
Until I started doing the job. And then I just realized it was not what I was passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say another message to students is finding out what you don't like is just as valuable as finding out what you do like.
Absolutely.
And so about 2 years into being a computer programmer, I realized I needed an abrupt shift. This was not going to be a career that would satisfy my interest. I wasn't really great at it. I was good at it, but I wasn't great. Yeah. And that's a horrible feeling. You know, you want to be great at what you do. So I knew that was not in the cards. So I just started kind of brainstorming, what do I want to do at age 25 with really no direction? It's a scary moment.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
But I decided to join the Peace Corps. So that's what really was, you've asked earlier about an aha moment. That was a big aha moment to make that decision and go to West Africa for 2 years. I was a teacher, math teacher, so I used those skills. But that completely turned my view of the world, first of all, but also gave me much more of an idea of what I wanted to do with my life. So I'll pause there. That's a lot of talking. I don't know if you have things along the way, but I think it's a perfect example of the power of a liberal arts education, because when I came back from Peace Corps, I enrolled in graduate school in the social sciences. Yeah. I had a degree in the social sciences. I had a degree in computer science. Yeah. But the ability, I knew how to read, I knew how to think critically, I knew I could adapt to the social science trajectory with no problem. And that's powerful to have that kind of flexibility in your life, because I don't think many 18 to 22-year-olds can really know exactly what they want to do. I couldn't. Yeah. So the education I got just provided great flexibility.
That's, I'm curious. I've just learned so much about you that I did not know. We can be colleagues together for years. I'm so glad to know these things. I can imagine you there in the '80s, kind of doing your coding and kind of you were kind of at the forefront in some ways in that. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And that felt really good. It felt
yeah.
great to be a young woman with
Hmm.
kind of those kinds of skills
Yeah,
where you're in demand.
yeah.
Ultimately, you have to go to work every day and do the
And
job.
sit there for many, many hours. Yeah, of course. So,
And I just I didn't like it. And like I said before, I wasn't great at it.
hmm,
And
okay.
that's not a good feeling.
So you were in a you know you had your moments of kind of questioning, doing some deep thinking, really kind of
Mhm.
assessing what your passions were. So you go off, you do your time in the Peace Corps, you have this really transformational experience. How did you end up becoming a professor? Did you know at that moment that kind of being in education, being a teacher was going to be the right fit for you? How did that journey continue?
Yeah, I came back from the Peace Corps with burning questions.
Mm,
For the first time in my life, I sought an education because I had burning questions, not because an education was a good thing to get or the
mm,
next thing to do. I came back with all sorts of questions about global poverty, international relations, the history of Europe and the US and Africa. And so I wanted to go to grad school because I wanted to have those questions answered or at least interrogate those issues. And so my first thought was, I'll get a master's degree and I'll teach social studies in high school.
mm-hmm,
That's what I was thinking I would do. And so I went to the University of Denver. They have a graduate school of international studies, and pursued the master's degree. That was my idea. And along the way, I was lucky enough to get a Rotary scholarship. So during my master's degree, I did 1 year in Senegal as a Rotary scholar. So I ended up taking 3 years to do a master's because I had gone abroad, which was fantastic.
mm.
To do an abroad experience as a graduate student was really great. Then I got to the end of the master's and I didn't want to stop. And those friends of mine were like, "You're good at this."
Yeah.
I started to imagine myself as a professor. It took a while. I mean, I didn't have the confidence to think of myself in that way at age 25.
Mm,
But as I got more and more into it, and I'm pretty good at complex theories and understanding complex theories and breaking them down for students
mm.
and helping them understand. I could feel those skills being honed, and I'm like, this is probably the best track. And so I didn't stop. I just kept right on going into the PhD and ended up going back to Niger for my dissertation research, which is on gender and development in West Africa.
Mm.
Um, so kind of picking up on some of the things I had witnessed and experienced during the Peace Corps, I was able to go back to that same country and do my dissertation research.
Mm.
And at that point, I was married and I had a baby. And so that was a lot to juggle, but grad school is great for flexibility. You don't have any money in grad school, but you know, you can study and go to class and kind of work your schedule out pretty well. So it actually was a pretty good time to have a child.
Mm.
Because my husband and I could kind of tag team the care while I was finishing up the dissertation.
So you said you kind of came back after your first time in Niger. You had these burning questions. You had these. So when you went back, did you feel like you'd gotten somewhere with answering those questions? What was it
Yeah,
like to come back older and wiser? What was that
right.
like?
Um, you achieve a better understanding every time. So my philosophy of education is to move back and forth between the field, so the experiential, on the ground experience or events, and then go back to the academy
Mm,
and think and discuss, because then you resolve some of those questions, but then other ones come up, or you realize that the question you were asking is the wrong question.
mm,
So for example, uh, um, why does Africa have such a problem with adopting democratic forms of government? Well, that's very simplistic to ask the question in that way, right? It's much more complicated because of the history of colonialism and because of the history of neocolonialism, why governments exist the way they do there. So each time I get a more sophisticated and kind of deeper understanding, but these are questions that there's no real definitive answer,
mm,
but you keep kind of coming back to it and getting a better understanding.
mm.
And this is what's great about teaching. I can engage with students on these questions, and a lot of times they bring up ideas that I haven't thought of,
Yeah.
about how to address some of these questions or problems. So it never fully, like, definitively satisfied. And this is what I love about math. Like math,
Oh my gosh.
you solve the equation and you're done.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the one hand, it's what I love about it. On the other hand, it's just not quite as interesting.
Yeah. Sure.
Whereas the questions I'm wrestling with about development and Africa and international relations, they're just fascinating, big, complex questions. And I just am jazzed by that.
Yeah. Great. Um, so I want to kind of I thank you for sharing all of that history. So then you find yourself employed at Center College at some point after you got your PhD. Um, Tell me a little bit about the way, um, we have a huge emphasis on study abroad.
Right.
Why do you think as an institution we've chosen to make that valuable? Why have we invested in it?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Oh, I think we've had some amazing pioneers like Milton Riegelman, who just took it by the reins and drove it. I think it is intimately connected to the liberal arts. If we are trying to create citizens, if that's what our goal is in a liberal arts institution, then in my mind, we really have to think about creating or fostering global citizenship.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You're a citizen of concentric circles in the world, and that big circle is the globe. And so achieving a better understanding of what that means is the role of study abroad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it fits really well with the liberal arts in general. I think for Kentucky, it's a phenomenal opportunity for students, particularly students from Kentucky who maybe haven't traveled very much, to open their eyes to the world and have those opportunities that they would never have otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
I had a student go to Central Africa with me who'd never been on an airplane.
Wow.
And your first time on an airplane, you're going to Cameroon and Central Africa. First of all, think of the courage that took.
Amazing.
For her,
Sure.
right?
Very brave. Yeah.
But I think now Center attracts, it's kind of self-selecting because we have a really good reputation for it, and students come here for that reason often.
Yeah. Talk to me
Yeah.
about that experience. So one of the things I think that we do a little differently at Center in the way we do study abroad is many of our programs are completely led by Center professors on the ground.
Right, right.
You mentioned earlier you've taken students abroad. You've taken them to study. Talk a little bit about that experience, what that's like as an educator to be teaching abroad.
Actually, I think that's why we have such a strong study abroad program. Everyone talks about the number of students who go abroad. With 85% of our students study abroad. That's impressive. But to me, it's the quality of those abroad experiences that sets us apart.
Yeah.
Are led largely by our faculty. That means faculty who have expertise in the region, in the area, are taking students who they probably already know with them to these amazing places.
Mm-hmm.
The Holy Lands. Last January, 2 religion professors took a group of 30 students to Israel and Palestine.
Mm.
We have Japanese professor taking students to Japan, and introducing them to Shintoism and Buddhism, and so intimate knowledge, and then being able to go with center students. That's unique.
Mm-hmm.
I also am proud of the fact that these are real academic experience. They're not fluff. They're not travel fluff. You will learn a lot from the travel itself and the material, the supplementary material that you're reading or lectures that you're attending. And I'm proud of that. I don't want to let that go to water it down. These are real robust courses. Mm-hmm. So for me, taking students to Africa has been such a thrill because I try to teach about a place, like in Danville, I'm trying to teach about Africa to students who never have even really imagined themselves there. So it's a hard jump for them to make. But when we're in a bus, going down a dusty road, talking about development, and all around us are examples of infrastructure issues, whatever the development topic of the day, they just come alive because then it's real, it's right in front of them. And so that's extremely satisfying for me. And it's not just understanding the problems. The other thing that I love is to watch their joy in learning about the culture and music and food, and right, this isn't just a continent of problems. This is a continent of extraordinary potential and excitement and dynamism. And they get that immediately. Yeah. The people we meet are fantastic. Last time we went, basically a musician traveled with us the whole time. He had a couple weeks off. He just traveled with us in the bus. And so in the evenings, he'd play guitar, and, we'd have dinner with him, and it was just amazing.
Yeah. So exciting. I'm thinking back to my own experiences, which was so wonderful. I know one of the things that's been exciting for me as a staff member is getting to know our faculty who are now, friends of mine. I've had the opportunity to go abroad with some other center faculty members. I wonder if you could tell me about what is that process like when you encounter a faculty member that says, you know what, I want to take students here, or, this is my area of specialty. How does that work? What's that like to be part of that experience for a faculty member?
Well, that's the thing that I like probably the most about the new job that I'm in, is I get to be that mentor. I get to be the person that the new faculty member comes to and says, I have an idea. How can I make this work for a study abroad program, particularly for our center term courses? And what I try to do is help them marry their expertise with the location but also with sort of logistical considerations.
Yeah.
How do you make this a course that is not only academically robust, but that students will kind of flow through in an organic way and totally enjoy, right? Because there's a lot of planning that goes into doing that. The first time I took students to Cameroon, I way overprogrammed it. We had stuff going and I almost had a mutiny. The students at some point were like, we need a break.
Yeah.
We need a day to just like do laundry and digest all of this. I had built in the time because for me it's not new. So I'm just kind of moving through the experience. And I forgot that for them it's the first time they've ever been on the continent. It's the first time they're seeing some of these things. So I had neglected to build in that time to digest it all.
Yeah.
So the second, third, and fourth times were much better. Those are the kinds of things that I would do to help faculty kind of devise a course, is bring together their expertise, the location, and then also kind of make it work as a 3-week kind of module. But yeah, there's a lot of, you make mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the classroom is a lot more sort of sanitized. You can predict things a lot easier. When you take students abroad, you know, your bus breaks down in the middle of the night.
Right. Yeah. You got to problem solve.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And students have to be part of that.
Right. Right.
So I always say it's fun, but it's not Disney World fun.
Right. It's real. Yeah. Well, I think that's one of those benefits of studying abroad, you know, the growth that can happen when you, as a young person, when you get out of your comfort zone, when you are maybe for the first time surrounded by a language that is not your native language, that these opportunities are really, I think, provide these momentous opportunities for students, for young people.
Well, and the other program I've directed is the Strasbourg program.
Yeah.
And I remember the first group of students who came, they're all excited. They get in the apartments. The key doesn't work very well. The hot water heater doesn't really turn on the way they think. The grocery store operates totally differently. Yeah. They're struggling with the language. And by like the first week, they're exasperated, right? I'm going to spend 3 months here.
Yeah.
No, but they get it. They learning. You can almost feel yourself learning on a day-to-day basis, and that feels really good. That's empowering. And they know the next time they encounter newness or they have to adapt in life, which you will always have to do, they're going to have those tools already honed. I love seeing that. I love seeing that transformation and knowing that they leave empowered. Yeah,
absolutely. So I know when I look at a list of all of the different places our students are going, whether it be the regular, you know, kind of the longer term, the long semester experience, or the shorter term, center term experiences, I just, you know, I have this moment where I'm like, oh, I wish, what are some of the trips, some of the abroad experiences, classes that you would like to take if you had the opportunity?
I have that feeling every time.
I know.
I have that feeling every time. So I think the one that interests me the most, and I'm actually writing an article about this, is the idea of studying abroad across locations. So the example of Dr. Hall and Dr. Jefferson, who took students to Morocco and Spain, and the point of the course is to look at the influences between Morocco and Spain historically. So architectural influences, food influence, religious influences. And I think that's a really cool direction for the future of study abroad, rather than saying I'm going to go to one discrete location to look at the flows, because the history of the human race is all about flows, right? The flow of culture and people and ideas. And so I think that's the one that I would really love to do, is the Morocco and southern Spain, where they really focus in on that back and forth and that mutual influence that has occurred over time between those two countries. I hope to do something like that. We're working with the Mellon grant on a African diaspora study abroad semester, where students would go for 9 weeks to Ghana in West Africa, finish in Memphis for 3 weeks to connect the sort of African influences in the United States amongst the African American population.
Oh, wow.
So it's the same idea, you know what I mean? It's not just location specific. It's about, okay, how did those flows happen and what are the effects of that cultural connection? So we're working on that for the future. It's been sidelined for the moment, but that's a very real program that should be in place in the next couple of years.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to see that that evolve. That's amazing. Well, let's talk just a little bit about some practical things when it comes to the way Center does study abroad. So let's say I'm a high school senior. I'm choosing my college. I know I'm interested in study abroad. I don't really know what that looks like. Is it tied to my major? Is it tied? Do I have to be proficient in the language in the country I might like to go to? Kind of what, when a student gets to Center, how does it work? How do they end up where they end up?
Great question. So as a first year, you would not study abroad. But in November of every year, we unveil all the study abroad programs for the following year. So that would be your sophomore year. At that point, you can start applying and doing as much as you want, right? I'll start with the semester programs. The semester programs differ. We do have some that are language immersion. So if you have a very high level of German and you want to study in the German language in Germany, we have a program. Other programs that you don't have to be fluent, you really don't even have to have a very high level, but you will be required to take the language. So let's say you do the Strasbourg program. You don't have to have French, but you will be required to take French while you're there. And you'll achieve a basic understanding. And then we have plenty of programs in the UK, an English-speaking area. So if you just don't want to deal with the foreign language aspect at all, those are other options. So Scotland, Northern Ireland, London program. So there's a gamut there. And I think that provides a great sort of menu of options. For the center term courses, you don't have to have any language skills. Those are 3-week courses. You'll find yourself in a place where foreign languages are spoken, but you don't have to have any language skills. And for those, you apply directly to the faculty director. And so they might ask you to write an essay to talk about why you want to go on the trip or the course. That application process is directly to the faculty member. Whereas the semester-long program, you apply through our office and we have a committee of people who make the choice. If you don't get accepted, and we judge based on letters of recommendation, an essay, GPA, familiar criteria, then you're welcome to apply to as many as you want for the next year.
Okay.
So ultimately, you're going to find something that works for you. And we also have some summer programs that help with students who either can't go during the year or don't get accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Now, tied to your major, most of the time it won't be.
Hmm.
The center term course, it's one course. It might not, but you shouldn't just go because it is connected to your major, right?
Yeah.
It's fine to take electives at Center College.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
We encourage electives.
Mm-hmm.
For the semester-long programs, usually you can get at least one course to count towards your major. And so we would counsel you, if you're a biology major, then the Glasgow, Scotland option is really good because they have good lab science there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're an international studies major, Strasbourg is great because you take a course on the European Union, which counts toward the major.
Yeah.
Same with British. Did you go to London?
No, I went to Strasbourg.
You went to Strasbourg, okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Same with London. There's a great British politics course that counts for politics and international studies.
Mm-hmm.
So for those, we'll help you. We help students understand, okay, what might be best for their major so that in the 4 courses they take in that location, at least one could count, maybe sometimes even 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So another question that we get a lot kind of from students who are thinking about center and the way we do study abroad, you know, we have this promise that a student, if they want to study abroad, we're going to help make it happen for them. And then we get questions about cost. How is it that students are able to afford to do the semester-long programs, the center term programs? How does that work?
Right. For semester-long programs, you pay as if you're on campus. So there's no extra cost. All you need to do is buy your plane ticket, and there's a $400 deposit and books and the other kinds of costs that you would have, traveling, your own personal travel costs. But otherwise, it is the same cost to study on campus as it is to study abroad for the semester programs.
Hmm.
So that makes it doable for a lot of students.
Yeah.
It's a matter of getting a plane ticket, right? That's the hurdle. But even if students struggle with those costs, we have scholarships available. Some scholarships are tied to language study. Some are more specific in other ways, depending on what the donor has desired. But we gave out about $70,000 last year in scholarship for study abroad.
Yeah.
And that included scholarships like what I just said, plus something called a senior subsidy.
Hmm.
If you become a senior, if you've gotten to your senior year and you haven't studied abroad, we have a subsidy that will help support a center term. So the semester-long programs aren't any extra cost. The center term is an extra cost. Mm-hmm. They're between $3,500 and $4,500 per. So that's an expensive endeavor, and we understand that. We again do everything we can to help subsidize that or support students. Mm-hmm. And then the summer program, we do have a Strasbourg program that's lower cost. Mm-hmm. That's a great option for students, less than $2,000 plus a plane ticket.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we can help find those lower cost options and help students apply for scholarships.
Yeah.
How it is that the scholarships are out there, but you got to apply for them.
That's right.
So
well, that's that is something though that I definitely feel really good about. That yes, this is a place that offers these opportunities, but also really offers the support and kind of structurally, the way course selection works, the way major requirements work, the way that the funding structures work, that all these things kind of make it possible to have such a high percentage of our students take advantage of these opportunities. So mm-hmm. I know that's something that I really love. So
yeah, I'm also proud of that.
Yeah. Um, I wonder if you could talk to me a little bit about um, center students, right? We can't necessarily make generalizations about them. They're all very different. Um, but do you see any, whether you're talking about students you're supporting who are studying abroad, students that you teach, students you advise, do you see, what do you love about center students? Kind of what are some of the qualities that you think, um, they have?
Great question. Yeah, it's the reason I stay here.
Yeah.
There's there's really no other school that I'd want to be, and largely that's because of colleagues,
Hmm.
amazing colleagues, and that's because of the students. Um, I find generally students are intellectually curious, and that's my favorite trait in a student. And I'm not saying they get all A's.
Right.
It's not that. It's not ambition as much as it is intellectual curiosity. Like
Mm.
after class, I I want to push this idea a little further. I didn't quite get it, or I want to talk to you more about this. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
Happens a lot. So they're in school for the reason of learning, and not everybody. And I've had lots of students who start out. I'll never forget one student. He, for freshman year, first year, he sits in the back of the class with this kind of look,
Yeah.
you know, and like I wanted to shake him, like, okay, come on, wake up.
Yeah.
This is not for dozing and sleeping, and this is interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, by the time he gets to be a junior, he's a top student in our program.
Yeah.
He ends up going abroad with me to Cameroon and gets totally turned on by it.
Yeah.
And in the senior seminar is like one of the major participants. I could hardly recognize that guy who sat in my class first year, kind of disinterested.
Mm.
But the other thing I've come to realize, even this look sometimes isn't totally real, right? Because that same student could come back later and say, I love that class. That class.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so you see a lot of transformation, and you see a lot of students get turned on intellectually over the course of their 4 years. But in general, people are excited to be in school and intellectually curious and courageous. This is not an easy school. This is not a coaster.
Yeah.
But you get so much out of it. One of my friends whose son went to Center said, you can go to another school and get a diploma, or you can go to Center and get an education.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and we do, I love our faculty just because they engage with students that allow for that kind of growth. And I love seeing that.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, are there any other kind of closing thoughts that you might want to share? You might talk about, you've mentioned, I feel like, some of the reasons you've stayed at Center. Definitely, the students, colleagues. Any other kind of thoughts or advice that you might give to a student who is thinking about potentially studying abroad? Yeah.
I think the advice I would give to students is to not feel pressure by the questions that you get all the time about what are you going to major in? What profession do you want to follow? How is that study abroad going to help you in your career as a lawyer or whatever it might be?
Mm-hmm.
Is to think of these 4 years as a time to explore And those career things will fall into place.
Yeah.
I know it's a little bit of a faith
Yeah.
thing asking for, but if you follow what you really like and work hard, it'll start to become clear the direction that you should take. But each of the experiences, the study abroad experiences, the classes you take, help to sharpen that focus a little bit more. So I'm sorry that sometimes that our society is so goal oriented and so outcome oriented.
Yeah.
I'll never forget when I went to the Peace Corps. I had some people say, well, what are you going to do with that? In other words, what's the practical value of how you're going to use it in your life? And I said, I have no idea what I'm going to do with it.
Right.
I'm going to go and have this experience. And then, of course, things kind of fell into place, right?
Good.
So I would just be a little bit reticent to, or try to resist that pressure that we're all under. What's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? What are you going to do as a career? You're going to have at Center, you're going to have lots of opportunity for discussions with colleagues and mentors and faculty members who will help you to sharpen that focus, and try to just enjoy the time. You know, it's a really beautiful moment of time. People say college is the best time of your life. I don't necessarily think that. Each year is the best time of my life, but it is a moment, a little bit of a pause between being a teenager and being an adult. And that pause just is rife with opportunities to grow and think about your future. So I think that's what the advice I would give.
Wonderful advice. I love it. It's great. Well, I want to thank you so much for this conversation. And we thank everyone at home who has tuned in with us today. And we hope to see you somewhere in the world, see you around sometime soon. So thanks again, Lori. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Annie. It was lovely to talk.
Okay.